On June 15th, 2015, President Donald Trump descended the escalator at Trump Tower to announce his candidacy for the presidency of the United States of America. This act alone was enough to trigger a massive outbreak of Trump derangement syndrome, also known as early onset acute liberalism. And one of the biggest symptoms of this affliction, as we've seen it sweep across the nation, is the fact that people will go out of their way now to find anything and everything and call it racist, just because calling things racist is now the new cool thing to do, I guess. What I really want to jump into in this episode is really just more of an expose on why this has become such a topic of obsession to the liberal left, and why they have chosen to outdo themselves at this point to find more and more inventive ways to call everything in the world around them racist. So welcome to this episode of The Wright Brothers. As we know, nothing is safe from the label of racist in 2019. And all you have to do is really just open up your smartphone and type a few things into Google really quick. It doesn't take you very long. But I was flabbergasted as I just typed in normal, arbitrary things and then just added the words "is racist" after it. And you will find actual news articles of journalists explaining why everyday things are racist. You don't believe me? Take a look. I Googled "milk is racist," and I found articles supporting the argument that milk is indeed racist. I Googled "air is racist," and I found articles indicating that air was indeed racist. And obviously we all know that Colin Kaepernick a few months ago came out and said that an early version of the American flag was racist, the Betsy Ross flag. I don't know why anybody listens to him anymore, but the fact remains that liberals seem to be obsessed with race in 2019, and I really don't know why that is. But here's the thing. Ever since President Trump came down and announced that he was running for president, liberals who previously were shown in photo ops smiling with the president, trying to get to his parties and what have you, they immediately did a 180 and said, okay, now we're gonna call this guy a racist. And there really wasn't anything to back it up. And that's the most flabbergasting thing, is that the liberals, they're actually very good at one thing, and that is hammering you with the same message over and over again until you are forced to believe it. It goes back to the old adage, if you repeat a lie long enough, people will believe it. And we see that playing out here. Remember a few years ago, everyone was saying, oh, these Confederate statues are racist, let's pull them all down. And you haven't heard anything about statues in a pretty long time now, have you? But that goes to show you that you're shifting along their narrative. They will shift and say, okay, this week, statues are racist. Next week, the air is racist. Next week, President Trump is racist. Even though there's very little or no circumstantial evidence to support their wild claims. Take a look at Colin Kaepernick. Now remember, Colin Kaepernick started his kneeling during the national anthem during the Obama years, but I digress. Colin Kaepernick, the biracial man who is the son of an African-American father and a white mother, who was given up for adoption, adopted by white parents, given the best life they could give him, got to the NFL, made millions of dollars playing a child's game, was cut from the NFL, and now he has somehow been anointed as the chief racial spokesperson. And he can do things as wild and crazy as convincing Nike to stop selling a shoe they were going to release that had the Betsy Ross flag on the back, because he said the Betsy Ross flag evoked memories of racism and it was an oppressive symbol. And people actually bought it. That's the crazy thing, is liberals can sell you anything in the world, but you still have to buy it. And there are too many Americans in the world today who are willing to let the liberals and the elite figureheads like Colin Kaepernick and others tell you what to think, tell you how to view the world around you, and you won't push back. You will just accept whatever they tell you as fact and move on with life. Since when was that how we as Americans do things? America is the land of the free, but evidently not. When we allow people like Colin Kaepernick, we allow people like Don Lemon, Chris Cuomo, Anderson Cooper, and many others, Oprah Winfrey even, to tell us how to view the world around you. And then we actually listen to them and begin to process the world through their warped view. That's not American. Look at the way the media has chosen to cover the recent shootings that we've seen in El Paso, Texas, Dayton, Ohio, and now Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. For those first two shooters that came up, the media was spun into a frenzy over the race of the shooters. And we saw them talk about how these white supremacy manifested now, and this is just the way the world is now. We have to be more fearful of white men. But then when we saw the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania shooting happen, which was carried out by an African-American man, that happened very recently. And I'm willing to bet actual money that the media is not going to obsess over race the same way in this case as they were with the other two cases. It's not to say that either case was more egregious than the other. It goes to show you, though, that the media is preoccupied and obsessed with pushing this race narrative. President Trump has done a lot to help the African-American community, and if he was a racist, he's doing a pretty bad job at it. I was at the White House earlier this year, and I got to hear from one of the first African-Americans who was released by virtue of the First Step Act. And this is legislation that President Trump pushed, and 91% of the people who were freed by the First Step Act came from the African-American community. We should be celebrating this. But if you turn on CNN and MSNBC, you're gonna constantly hear the same tired arguments. Now try this. Next time you hear the news talk about how racist America is, just really turn off the TV, go outside, interact with people around you. And you will see that the average interaction with the average American is anything but racist. But the media has to continue pushing this lie because they've already sold it so aggressively. They're going to keep pushing it until more and more people buy it, because then that is going to substantiate and add further credence to the way they view the world. And if they can get you to see the world the way they see the world, then they've truly won. But that is an abdication of critical thought and deductive reasoning. There is so much evidence to the contrary that America is not the most racist, hateful place on the face of the earth, but you have to actually see that for yourself. You can never allow someone like the mainstream media to do your thinking for you, because when you do, you open the door for them to start planting ideas in your head. It is so easy to rationalize this crazy thought process that everything in the world is racist. I could find a loaf of bread right now and say, oh, this loaf of bread is racist. And let me tell you how they would do it too, since everything is racist now. They would say, oh, well, wheat in its original form comes in a brown outer casing, but then when the manufacturers break down the wheat, they break the outer husk away and they refine away all of the other bits of color from the wheat until they have this white substance that they use as flour to make bread. So bread is an example of the oppressive white heterosexual patriarchy, where you have to remove everything of color before you have something that's substance, something that is worthy of you to have. And do you see how easy that is? But when you participate in this delusion that everything in the world is racist, and you allow people to cloud your thought process and give you that lens through which to view the world, then from that point forward, everything in the world that you see will be racist. And it won't be anyone else's fault but your own in the mainstream media, because they're the ones who sold you the lie, but you're the one who bought it. And that's the main thing. So I want to know, what are your thoughts as we hear these racist allegations continue to be thrown around in our world around us today? I want to hear from you. I love engaging with our base. Also, for those of you who want to engage with us on an even deeper level, please feel free to check out our Facebook page, The Wright Brothers IPID. And for those of you who feel inclined to support us through Patreon, we'd like to give a special shout out to those of you who've already taken it upon yourselves to support us in this fashion. But I want to hear from you. What has your experience been with racism? What do you think about these wild, crazy accusations that are being thrown around now about everything in the world being racist? I want to hear your thoughts. Share them below. If you like this video, please smash that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, and we will see you in the next one.
The first revolution is when you change your mind about how you look at things and see that there might be another way to look at it that you have not been shown. The revolution will not be televised, and be no rerun, brothers and sisters. The revolution will be live.